let's start. Uh, let's start to talk about the story about the Bible and who created the Bible. So we know that the creator of Bible is the Genesis, the book of Genesis in the Bible is Moses is the author of the Genesis. So Moses was a prophet, was called by God lead to children of Israel. So alam naman natin siguro yung full story kung sino si Moses. Then I've started to gain interest on discussing more about the Bible, especially that was been refined generation by generation. So despite being people calling this book as actually a myth, sometimes it intrigues me kasi we don't really know what's the reality, the truth about being here in this earth, being in this universe. Kasi pag titignan mo yung earth natin it's like we are bound to exist here in this very tiny earth system. It was surrounded by bigger and bigger planets, much bigger stars. We are trapped here inside this very small planet we called Earth. And the time that our civilization has been brought upon us, our consciousness began to appear. So the one of the famous scientists or philosophers said that I think therefore I am. So if you had realized that kind of profound reflection, self-reflection, maintindihan natin na we are a conscious being in this planet. And it's weird to realize that among the 100,000 species existed, we are the only species that has a profound realization to the world, or we are therefore conscious to understand that we exist. My point here is that I want to tell you my opinion that maybe the Bible is how the Western civilization was built onto. Kasi 'di ba pag naintindihan mo yung Bible, yung Bible, yung whole story niya. Actually ako ang naintindihan ko lang is more on the Genesis side, and then after the Genesis it happens that after those dark period within the Bible, then came later Jesus appeared, and at the last part of the Bible is when the revelation is, when the end of the world, the prediction that soon all of it will collapse but the good side will win. So ang punto nito is that what if the Bible is just telling us a message that upon existing here on our planet, we are able to decode, para bang i-decode natin yung secret kung ano ba talaga yung existence natin, and ano ba yung naging relationship na sa pagbuo ng civilization natin and sa pagbuo ng future civilization ng mankind. Kasi hindi natin may iwasan yung mga events na mga nangyari from the apple, diba? Then we are tempted by this serpent, Adam and Eve. It happens that it coincides, it jives to the story of Steve Jobs and the future smartphones. Parang tumugma siya. Then we all knew that tumutugma rin yung kwento niya from the story of Sir Isaac Newton when the period of dark age happened, and during the scientific revolution, the 1666, it happens na may great fire sa London. Then 666 is probably the mark of the beast. It happens na during those times Isaac Newton had discovered the falling apple, where in fact he had contemplated the existence of the gravity. Then that gravity sparked his interest to create the mathematical principles of natural philosophy na naging starting birth ng scientific revolution. So means that walang mali, di ba? Walang tama, walang mali. May mga tao nagsasabi na what if hindi daw kinain ni Eve, or hindi sila na-tempt doon sa apple na yun? Anong magiging story ng humanity, story ng existence natin? It would be a very boring situation wherein Adam and Eve would remain to be unconscious in this world. So yung apple yung naging first temptation within the Bible, and then the story continues. Pwede nating panoorin ito. Sabi kasi dito is si Jordan Peterson, one of the most famous American, I think he said that the story of the Bible would means connected to the story of our civilization, on how our civilization was built on. 47 from 021.
An explanation of the role of the Bible in the formation of Western civilization. Rogan sat rather spellbound as Peterson detailed what the Bible actually is and its significance for cultivating the world as we know it. And what I found so fascinating by Peterson's explanation was how well it resonated with what cultural anthropologists have been observing about the inherently religious foundations of all civilizations around the world, and why our current secular world is beginning to implode. So what
yun na, ang sabi niya dito is that it really jives on how our civilization had imploded and how it was really related to the Bible. Diba? So I'd like to present the story of Cain and Abel. Ito na very interesting rin yung story na ito kasi it connects what current world event na nangyayari sa mundo natin. So, start tayo. Let's start to watch the story. Hi Bible, chapter 3, Cain and Abel. So, in the Genesis, ito yung order niya is Genesis 1 to 3, the creation and fall. Then, dito nag-skip yung story ni Cain and Abel. So, I am very interested on the story of Cain and Abel because the story implies about these two brothers. Actually, then Adam and Eve gave birth to these two brothers. Then, nagkataon na they are involved on God's messages. So, ang weirdest realization or weirdest discovery that I have discovered recently is that what if Cain and Abel was not real story that had happened, diba? That had happened within the Bible itself. But yung story niya implies that it is the story beyond our comprehension, or a massive story of our civilization wherein the personality of Cain, or the capability of human instinct to kill his own kind for the sake of satisfying his self-interest ego. Kumbaga, nangyayari ito sa buong mundo, yung 7 deadly sins, or kung saan dito umiral yung human instinct natin. Ito yung capacity na kayang gawin natin for the sake of our Lord, I think, of bragging something out of us. So this story also part of human civilization, how human civilization had evolved for the past 8,000 years. I think we are on war. We are always on war. Our civilization was built out of war. Diba? Pag titignan mo yung history natin, the conquerors and the conquest, the quest for superiority, makikita mo hindi magpapalugi yung instinct natin as a group to engage on war, magpatayan sa isa't isa. So ang punto dito is that despite being your closest brother, Abel, you're still bound to kill your brother. So a human killing themselves, yun yung buod, or that's the point of the story of Cain and Abel. Humanity killing themselves, each other.
In the field together, Cain turned on his brother Abel and killed him.
Dito, let's connect this situation to the current world. So dito papasok yung just recently discovered ko na bakit connected ang Cain and Abel sa reality natin sa 21st century. Kasi recently I just discovered na what if Cain and Abel was a country, diba? What if Moses had predicted that in the current generation Cain and Abel's story would have happened, that Cain was a farmer and Abel was a shepherd. If you have studied the human civilization and how civilization was built onto, it was during the revolution when people started to cultivate farming. We started to farm. Before farming, we had hunter-gathering method like Abel was doing. But this kind of farming had sprout the civilization. But after that civilization, if you know the story of yung nakita mo yung story sa Cain and Abel, God had favored the method of Abel and ignore the method of Cain. Ano ba yung nag-trigger kay Cain na para mapatay niya yung kanyang kapatid? It's more about the sin. Yun na yung the bite of the apple. So that sin had produced, I think, the jealousy, the envy, the pride, lahat na nag-trigger until such time the capacity to kill his brother had happened already. The weirdest realization na discover ko dito is that Cain and Abel, what if they are the modern day countries? The modern day country na nag-aaway-away for the sake of civilization, for the sake of advancing something. Kasi more related talaga, very related siya sa story ng ating countries. Cain and Abel in the story of Moses are countries. If you will you type the list of the countries which had the name of Cain, kumbaga irarumble mo yung mga name ng bansa. Lalabas yung countries like United States. Another superpower is China. Another country, Iceland. So, tatlo lang. Sample lang natin to. Then, the rest would be Central Republic African. Kayo na bahala mag-expound sa na-discover ko. Dominica, Micronesia, Nicaragua, Macedonia, St. Lucia, and continent North America. Punta naman tayo sa list of countries who have the name of Abel within the words of the countries who have the name of Abel. So pag titignan mo dito, ang example is Bangladesh, Belarus, Liberia, then Lebanon. Hatiin natin yan dito. So, why did I say that these countries have word of Cain? So, pag titignan mo, C-A-N-N-I. This word is Cain. This word, this is Cain. Pag nirumble mo, this is Cain. The words of Cain. This country, these three country, United States, America, China, Iceland. This country had the word Abel, Belarus, Abel, Lebanon. So, this is very, I think, unique exploration na discover ko just recently is that if you have tried to search those countries, these three countries, I think, are more related to the story of Cain. Diba? United States, the superpower, they are actually conquering the 21st century, the China and the Iceland. So, this one is being bombed, being bullied by other countries, and this one have more civil rights than Belarus. Belarus was a conflict of Russia and Ukraine war. Russia, Ukraine. Diba? Then Bangladesh had also involved in civil rights movement. So, kayo na bahalang mag-isip kung ano pa ang pwede nyong i-relate dito sa tatlong bansa na to. Related siya kay Cain. Then, these countries related to Abel. Kayo na bahalang mag-isip. Basta, yun yung very profound realization na discover ko sa fact na story na to. Aside from discovering the relationship of Steve Jobs, the Apple company, and the story of the Bible, this had made me quite a realization na ito yung mangyari sa future natin, these countries, di ba? So if we continue the Bible story, sabi ni Cain is, am I my brother's keeper? So pag titignan mo yung these countries, they have more blood related events, diba? The civil war, the war on Belarus, Liberia, Lebanon, diba? They are more involved into the civil war, blood on the street, bombing. Then ito na yung pinaka-peak ng pinakamagandang story na sabi ni God dito is, now you are cursed from the very ground which received your brother's blood by your hands. So nagkaroon ng curse si Cain. He was cursed by God. So sabi ni God dito, ito very profound, that from this day forth you will work the ground but it will not yield food. So what does that implies? It just simply implies that it happens to be that you will work the ground. So these countries are currently working the ground, but it will not yield food. What aspect is that God that telling, ano ba yung pinupunto dito ni God? Is that they are making technology. Technology makes you work onto something or business idea. People in these countries, US, China, Iceland, they work more onto idea. They try to work something, like God said. They work on their ground, but will not yield food. But the fact that they are working on this kind of aspect, technology, idea, they are not yielding food. That's a curse. If you see this country, Bangladesh, Belarus, Liberia, Lebanon, they are not producing idea or technology, which happens to be coincide to the story of Bible. So another curse is that you shall roam the earth, a fugitive and a wanderer. So this is another fun fact. God said that you shall roam the earth. Why would Cain roam the earth? Alone? Totoo ba na magro-roam siya sa earth? Kung totoo yung story na to. Or it implies onto this story, the story of our civilization, that in time, this country are now facing the evolution of technology. And it happens that these three countries are involved on the technology of gene immortality. This country are likely involved on the immortality of human or longevity. So, it happens to be na nagkataon din Arthur Levinson. So, ano ba yung mga company, example ng company na involved sa gene immortality? One is the Calico. Calico is found on South San Francisco, California, which is another ground of United States of America. And they are now focusing on longevity. But who is the founder? Arthur Levinson. So, Arthur Levinson was an American. Mababasa mo dito sa career niya na nakafocus siya sa genetic immortality ng tao. Diba? These three countries are likely to involve into the developing the evolution of gene immortality, which is said that God cursed them to do so. So, pag titignan mo dito sa early career niya is John Levinson was also an ex-chairman of Apple. Try natin panoorin yung kwento niya. Art Levinson. So, Arthur Levinson was fighting the disease of aging. So, which is, he was also part of Apple company before, chairman. So, what is Apple, diba? Part of our story is that Apple was involved on producing smartphones, and to my previous vlog, part of the story of Adam and Eve. So, increasing longevity. So another story is that if you try to search to Google Iceland genetic immortality, Iceland as a country has a lot of, I think, researcher who tries to manipulate the aging and longevity of the person. So another country involved is that China. China is also involved on the race to genetic immortality, which is coincidentally part of God's curse to them, to Cain. You shall roam the earth, a fugitive and a wanderer. So kung magtataka tayo na until now hindi pa rin natin nahanap si Cain. Kasi yun ang sabi ni God, di ba? He will roam the earth and have this immense age of immortality. So it implies to these countries involved na sooner or later in time, our civilization will progress because of Cain's or this country who have the search to idea, to technology, and to business engage on genetic immortality. And the fun fact is that another thing is that you shall roam the earth, a fugitive and a wanderer. So one thing na may isip natin with these three countries or any countries in the world, I think our civilization is going there. We will soon progress, we will soon evolve our civilization from stage 3, the galactic system, because of Cain, because of the personality of Cain. We are more developing the spaceship, the rockets, the technology, the idea. That is how we are going to, and usually I think these two countries, China, US, will compete to that kind of new age, and that was part of God's curse to them. That sooner or later, these two will launch a spaceship. Sabi dito is, you shall roam the earth. They will roam the entire earth. These two countries will roam the entire earth. And the fugitive and the wanderer, they will become the explorers onto the other universe, to the other planets, because of the factor that they are prone to technology, to idea, and business. Umiyak si Cain. Sabi niya, the punishment is greater than that I can bear. Naban na daw siya sa earth and the God's presence. So, kung sino man ang makakahanap sa kanya, ay papatay sa kanya. Diba? So, meaning, it simply implies that the story of our civilization is very deep. What I think is that if you think about the future of space race, the evolution of humanity, it was more onto Cain's descendant of thinking that technology had gone too far, that they become the fugitive instead of they become the hero. Diba? Hero in our time. Sooner or later, they become the fugitive. Whoever finds them will kill them. Ito, medyo deep rin yung pagkasabi dito kasi no one will harm you. So, walang gagalaw sa kanila. And whoever na may gagalaw man sa kanila would be punished 7 times greater. So, we'll not know what the story of our civilization will progress onto when we are handled by US or China. But I think this is true. They cannot be, kumbaga wala nang makakatalo sa dalawang superpowers na yun. Kasi if you try to block their progress in technology, they will be punished 7 times greater. Fun fact discovery. So may na-discover na naman ako that correlates to Cain, Abel. Fun fact story na nag-relate na naman sa Cain and Abel is that they are a city in United States. Oh, states. So, these states and territories. So, pag tinignan mo, if you study the United States, this is the 50 states. One thing na makikita mo dito is that if you try to think territorial state had a word Cain in its presence, dito makikita mo yung word na California. So, ano ba yung word na may word na Abel? Pag binasa mo dito, Abel is more on, I think wala dito yung yung word na ito, Alabama. So wala siyang E, but it has more sound like a bell word. Cain is more sound like a California. So fun fact, California is where most businesses, saan ba makikita yung Silicon Valley or Silicon Valley? Makikita siya sa San Francisco Bay of California. So, kung ma-realize mo yung the Silicon Valley is where the birthplace of the IBM, the origin of the internet, lahat, all of the technology, or of the tech aspect is more related to California. The origin of the internet, advent of software, Apple company is California, has been born onto ito, high technology companies are headquarters in the Silicon Valley. Ayan, yan sila lahat ng nakikita mo sa app, mostly they are being born on the California Silicon Valley. Isn't that coincident? The story of the simple story of Cain and Abel is really related to the current generation. It is said that they will be forced to work. Alagay dito, you will work the ground, but it will not yield food. Yun yung sabi ni God. Yun yung naging curse, etc. So dito rin nakikita na lumabas, nag-appear rin yung San Francisco or California Satanism. The first satanic church dito rin nag-appear. First satanic church, I think it was 1966. So nasama rin to doon sa previous vlog ko. Dito rin lumabas, nag-appear sa California. Or just coincident, or it just happened, it was destined. So dito naman sa Alabama, more the word related to Abel. You see Alabama, Kaliko. If you try to search the most religious states in America, papasok yung Alabama. Most religious. Alabama is the most religious state. Top 10. Then dito, panoorin natin to. So ito, it's more related to the story of Abel. First heart open surgery, it happened to Alabama. So Alabama had also built a rocket that first put human onto the moon. So if you see relatedly, when Abel had offered something to the gods, so it was the birthplace of Confederacy. They are much more involved on civil war. Again, similarly, the same to the countries of Lebanon, Ukraine, Belarus, which is, he was involved onto civil war. So, pero ang one thing na strike me the most is that Alabama was part of the history of Martin Luther King. Another thing is the Native Americans. Kayo na pong bahala mag-search. Pero I think Alabama is related to Martin Luther King and the Native Americans. May civil rights movement sila. Reverend Martin Luther King was one of the most influential, I think. He was a pastor, American minister. One of the most influential people in our history, and that he was part of the civil rights movement. So if you relate the story of the previous Alabama to the story of Abel, it was more on to the side of oppression than defense. The story relates more onto you see the story of Martin Luther King. He survives a knife attack in 1958. Then Albany movement in 1961. He was arrested because of racism, of oppression, of white supremacy. Dito is white supremacy. Then the famous very popular to si kasi he was more on also a believer of Jesus ministry. Martin Luther King was very influential. He was also showed the non-violence movement, the American Civil Rights War, activism involved with Native Americans, politics, lahat. Martin Luther King. Martin Luther King was like the Abel of the story, the true Abel that carried the generation of this place, part of the story of this place, and the oppression of white supremacy. So, yeah. So, what's my point here? My point here is that the people of the United States, as related to the story of Cain, California is killing the entire generation of Alabama. So my point here is that Cain, as was cursed by God to create this, then they empower this, then alongside the opposite had happened here. So Alabama has a lot of more Abel history, wherein it happened that there's the Martin Luther King involvement, there's the Black African movement. This is what the racism, thinking about the racism. So it happens na sa US, nagkaroon rin ng massive revolution. Kasi if you have studied the real history of Alabama, they are previously owned by Native Americans. If you try to relate the story to the current generation, na Cain had killed Abel, or the white people, which is the people of this, had killed the Native Americans. Kaya pag tinitignan mo, wala ka nang makikitang Native Americans currently in the state of United States of America. Because the story implies, the story of Moses coincidentally said that Cain had killed Abel, or the Native Americans, they have this land, they have this good land, they are shepherds of this land, they have good offerings to their Lord, they are spiritual people, but because of greed, because of jealousy, because of power, because of technology, and the process of evolution, the process of civilization, how civilization will progress, the white people killed the Native Americans. After a few years, nagkaroon ng mga African doon. Naging part of America na yung Alabama, but another few years is that it was again engaged on another civil war, civil rights movement, wherein African, during the time of Martin Luther King, wherein people this place had been battling the racism movement, when black people are being oppressed. It's part of our, parang part yun ng civilization natin, that they are part of oppression, they are part of movement. Then the white people also had the chance to kill this African movement there. It's more related to the story of Abel once again. Another fun fact again is that if you search the Alabama history, meron kang makikita ito. I went to the incest capital of America. So Alabama was said to be the incest capital. So it was said to be the incest capital of America, wherein, what is the word incest? Incest means you are likely to have a relationship more on sexual, or basta relationship to your closest relatives or brothers and sisters, which happened to be part also of the story of Cain and Abel, when Cain married his sister Awan, or Seth, the third son of Adam and Eve, married his sister Azura. These are all related to the story, to the prediction, to the mythical story of Moses. All of this went to the capital, US, sweet home Alabama. So let's continue. Medyo matagal-tagal yung vlog na to kasi once ko lang to ipa-vlog. So after the death of Abel and Adam, had another son in his likeness. So pinangalan nila itong Seth in Bible. So Seth in Bible is the third son, and it is one of the successor of Noah, diba? Noah. So alam naman natin yung story ng Noah, diba? Yung the flood, he created this large boat. So we may not know if this will happen in the future. The descendants of Seth will create the next Noah of our generation. Sabi ko nga sa kwento ko that he will create this large spaceship alongside with the animals, and predicting that the world will collapse and that the sin will be cleansed. Ito na, nag-continue na yung story. East of Eden. Sa east, pag tinignan mo yung Google Maps, sa land daw siya ng Nod, hindi settle at the east of Eden. So Eden was previously Iraq. So pag dito ka sa Iraq, the east side is here, the US state side. So nagkaanak rin si Cain, which is pinangalan niyang Enoch. Ito yung family tree nila. I-build a civilization out of it. This kind of story will happen probably to what the countries I have discussed, where the China, the US, the Iceland, where they develop this generation. They play the musical instrument, so others became tools in bronze and iron. So in our modern world, they become, I think, programmers or engineers. Naging engineers sila. So modern day engineers. So he named the city Enoch. So ito, dito lumabas yung mga descendants ni Cain, that the human became very much more prone into evil. I think if you relate this story to the countries, the US or the China, I don't know what will happen to the future of humanity when Lamech for 6 to 8. So one thing that strike me the most is the Seth, the third son of Adam and Eve. So when you search Seth and list the countries, related to Seth, lalabas yung the country Lesotho, Liechtenstein, Netherlands, South Korea. Diba? Actually, this kind of searching or this kind of exploration is a pseudoscience. Baka it's not real, it's just part of my opinion. This cannot be a scientific basis. So pag titignan mo the countries related to Seth, the words we have Seth is the South Korea, the Netherlands here sa taas. So we don't know if this country, I think Netherlands is part of it's not actually, they empower socialism, parang socialism. Aside from Finland, they're one of the happiest countries today. Netherlands is one of the happiest countries living in. They don't believe in too much progress, don't believe in the massive segregation of the rich from the poor. They believe in equality. I think another one is the South Korea. They not be the happiest country, but they are kind of unique in its sense because they empower capitalism, but they also do have a unique culture which they believe to be more related to the movement of Seth, or if you mark my words, they could be the descendants of future Noah. This country, remember these 4 countries, they could be related to the descendants of the future Noah, who will save the world, will save their species and repopulate the world again. Who knows? But this is just a theory, a big speculation for my part. Kasi nagtugma yung kwento ni Cain to the US and China as the power country. They kill the countries of Lebanon, Belarus, Liberia, and this Seth is one of the descendants of future Noah and is part also of the story of the book of Genesis 4 to 6. So what can we learn? What can we learn on the story of Cain and Abel? Basically, we learned that the Adam and Eve story was likely part of a huge mystery to us, because if you track down the first civilization, so our civilization has started here, the Adam and Eve Iraq, but that happens that Apple had started here, San Francisco, California. But the weird fact is that Iraq, or the Middle East, was the descendants of Steve Jobs. Syria. His mother and father was born on Syria. Steve Jobs pinadala sa San Francisco, California. Then it sprouted the cult of Apple. Steve Jobs' parents came here from Syria, which is also related to how he built Apple. So his mother and father came here, where in fact that Iraq is the place where civilization had started, diba? The first civilization. So connected pa rin siya kasi Steve Jobs then came to be adopted in San Francisco. Then San Francisco, coincidentally, part of this large state, part of this capitalistic state na naging birth of the tech revolution, 21st century. What can we realize? So we realize that civilization, our entire civilization, is either designed, or either yung entire civilization, yung story of civilization natin wherein farming just started recently, 8000 BC, or 8 if they can track the first farming. Then after the farming, people had already cultivated or learned how to develop this kind of food mechanism, kung paano mas madaling maka-advance yung mga tao. Kasi back before shepherd, the time of hunter-gatherer, before the birth of civilization, we are blinded. Kumbaga bulag tayo sa mga nangyari, na yung tao nagkaroon ng much bigger perspective of progress after the birth of the true civilization. Pag nakikita mo, pag-advance ng pag-develop ng isang grupo ng tao, they already acquired the identity of being Cain unto themselves. So nakagawa ng mga pyramid, then they sprouted the civilization here, then they spread here on European places. After that, nag-develop, nag-advance, 1600s, nagkaroon ng conquest using ships, nagkaroon ng mga explorer. So that is the true story of how Cain descendants had spread. Cain descendant is the story of our civilization. They spread here, spread sila dito, na-discover nila yung entire America. They engulfed this entire America. Then also the Chinese people had spread their civilization upwards. That's the point of the story, Genesis 4 to 6. That's what I'm implying onto that. The story simply could not be real. Pwede nyo akong i-bash or i-hate. Maybe the story could be a mythical fact. But it was kind of prophetic to predict that the reality we are living in, the world, maybe we are run by aliens, and that the Bible just had sprouted in this place. But for me, my realization is that the moment we are being conscious, we are given this consciousness in the Garden of Eden, or in the place we are living in, we are already part of the Bible story. That there is bad, there is evil in us. in the chapters, in every chapters of the story of the Bible, there is already the evil within us. But later, we progress, then Jesus had returned and saved us all. Christianity, doon nag-spread yung story. Kumbaga, ang story natin is from the dark moment through the light. Parang yung Bible is parang code siya na binigay sa atin. Inulog siya sa mga propeta, sa mga prophets. They have written this. Kasi magtataka ka bakit until now Bible pa rin yung nag-e-empower. One of the most influential books. But up until till this time, we really don't know what's the purpose of that. It's hard to believe that despite being so advanced, we are still connected. Related pa rin tayo dun sa story. Diba? Connected pa rin yung entire civilization natin, that in the end, there is the story of the revelation, where the end of the world, masusunog daw yung mundo. The story of Noah, the Noah's flood. I think it had happened already during this time where pyramids are gone. Nabura. Mga pyramid natin na lang yung naiwan, diba? Naubos. The consciousness is still there, but how we build the pyramid is still an intriguing mystery to us up until to this day. Na the story of Zeus, Hercules is just a mythical lang sila kung titignan. They are mythical characters, but might be that their story are so real that humanity had been already advanced to the other planets, and that the story was given to us by some conscious people, mga malilikot na utak na nagkaroon ng connection outside this planet. So that's it. The Bible speaks to itself. It's like a code. The story, parang code siya na ito yung kwento. Once binasa mo tong kwento na to, ito yung tunay na mangyayari, and you cannot prevent it. You cannot change it. You cannot tell it that Abel needs to live. Baga, hindi mo pwedeng sabihin na mabuhay si Abel para baguhin mo yung kwento, or hindi mo pwedeng sabihin sana hindi na lang kinain ni Adam and Eve yung apple. That's the story. That's the reality, the progress of the Bible. Because despite of this dark story within the first code, the first phrases, there's still a person who will save us. I think that's the story of Jesus from Nazareth. So, kayo na lang bahalang mag-isip. Kayo na lang bahalang mag-realize kung ano ba talaga yung purpose nito, and what is the purpose of this to our civilization and to our future, being a conscious people